Yo, what's up, guys? Today we're going to be doing a bit of testing with the electric banjo. We're going to learn how much damage this does exactly, what utility this exactly offers, and if this is even worth running in a build. Now, I only did a bit of testing to really find out how much damage this does, and I got some consistent results with it. So let's just get into it though. Basically, the real point of this video though is to understand the banjo a bit more and to decide if you want to play it in your Seeing Dead Zane builds and also the best ways to use it. So basically, this is kind of going to end up being an open-ended video for you to understand if you want to play this artifact or not. So the first thing we did to test was I grabbed an Unforgiven from my bank. It's just a really nice single pellet weapon that feels consistent for testing. And I basically just went to Pandora and I shot some skags until we got some chains from our banjo. Once we did, I went into photo mode. I got some pretty consistent results each time. And when I say that, I mean the math, like the percentage that the banjo chain did, seemed to be about the same every single time. Now I'm going to put a couple different clips or pictures on the screen. We're going to put some numbers on the screen for you guys. I'm recording my audio afterwards. I'm not exactly sure where the clips are going to come in yet, but each time we got about 19 to 20% damage of our original gunshot. So for example, if our original shot did 100 damage, our banjo damage would be between 19 and 20 each time. It seemed to be about 19.3 if I remember correctly. So for each shot, the banjo chain does about 20% damage, it seems like. You also have to keep in mind that this is shock on flesh. So in my opinion, this is a really decently strong chain we're getting. Shock does about 60% damage total versus flesh. So this is going to be almost twice as strong against shields. And yeah, so with the weakness of shock versus flesh in mind, it is a little bit impressive to me that we're actually getting a full 20% of our original shot. So the numbers for a couple different of these screenshots will be on the screen for you guys. Like I said, I'm just going to show you guys everything and show you all the numbers. Another thing I did notice since I was using the Unforgiven, which is actually pretty cool, is that these chains can sometimes crit. So there should be another clip or another screenshot on the video at this point showing you guys a ton of crit damage. Now the reason why you're seeing so much crit damage is because I'm holding an Unforgiven. So we're actually crit swapping the banjo chain right now. Now that's not something you're ever actually going to do, but it is a really cool thing that basically shows us that not only are these chains doing about 20% damage, but they can also crit sometimes, meaning they're going to be doing double that. So that was really interesting as well. So next, for the next test, I wanted to use a multi-pellet weapon. I've actually heard a lot of people say they've paired the electric banjo with a brainstormer, and they weren't really impressed with it. They didn't think it was so strong. And so I kind of had a feeling that the banjo chains, when it came to multi-pellet weapons, that they were probably only inheriting the damage from one pellet. Now, when I took the Maggie and I shot at a skag, that seems to be exactly the case. As you can see, our Maggie shot is doing 3,600 damage. If we divide 3,600 by 6, because there's 6 pellets in the Maggie, and then we divide that by the banjo damage, you'll see we are at that just about 19 to 20% again. So like I said, it seems as if the banjo is only inheriting the damage from one pellet. So this is probably not going to be strong with like multi-pellet weapons like the Maggie, where we have 6+ pellets, or shotguns, stuff like that. So basically, just from these short tests, now I messed around with the Unforgiven for a while. You guys are only seeing a couple clips, but I got basically consistent numbers the entire time. It seemed to be about 20% every single time against non-shields. And then once again, we found out that the banjo chains can actually crit as well. And it has a 20% proc chance, so it procs about once every 5 shots. So normally, this doesn't actually seem like a great relic. And I actually don't think this is that good with most weapons. But now I want to show you guys some tests I did with the redistributor. So a video I made yesterday explained how every single shot through Zane's barrier will cause this weapon to chain. So I just wanted to shoot the redistributor slowly with an electric banjo equipped and see how often we get banjo chains. Now from my testing and the clips you guys are watching now on screen, it looks like we're getting banjo chains every single shot. And not only that, but sometimes we get 2 or like more than 2 chains per shot as well. So the banjo triggers more than once every shot because the redistributor chains can also trigger it. So keep in mind that yes, this does do 20% damage per trigger, but it's doing 20% of the chain damage. It's not doing 20% of our original shot. So basically all of our chains are 20% stronger. However, that is where most of the damage from the redistributor comes in. And like I said, it triggers more than once per chain. Now, I wouldn't necessarily expect it to. On average, it seemed to trigger maybe about twice per chain. I was kind of shooting this one at a time for a while as well. And you guys can go do this too. But this is what I found. So basically, when we're testing the banjo and artifacts and stuff, we have to keep in mind our alternatives. We could be wearing a victory rush. We could be wearing an icebreaker instead. We could be getting straight up gun damage from like a victory rush or an icebreaker where they literally list a percentage of damage. And I actually think it's fine to wear those artifacts instead of the banjo as well. The redistributor with the barrier is so powerful, and especially when you apply extra elements to it, it's very powerful as well. So I think those are fine to do. But where I think the banjo has a cool advantage is when you take advantage of it. So we should min-max our skill trees accordingly. I did a bit more testing with the redistributor and banjo. I wanted to test the minimum amounts of playing dirty we could use and keep playing dirty up consistently. And I also wanted to test the minimum amount of points in good misfortune. So I think about 3 points in playing dirty is the sweet spot. If we could actually go 3.5, I think we would have 100% playing dirty uptime, maybe 4 points, and we can definitely only use 1 point in good misfortune. So I'm going to put a quick skill tree of just the Hitman tree. You guys can put your remaining points anywhere else. That's kind of preference if you want to get to all-rounder, or if you don't really care about points in the barrier tree. Normally I like to get to Supersonic Man, and I just use the non-all-rounder barrier, which you guys might notice in some of my clips. So as you can see in our skill tree, we're only using 3 points total in playing dirty. We're using 1 point total in good misfortune. Depending on the class mod you have, you can even save some more points because you might have some playing dirty on there. But the main difference between this skill tree and the average Seeing Dead skill tree you're used to looking at is we have a lot more points into Violent Violence. Not only that, but you could even put these points into Borrowed Time. Borrowed Time is also a really good skill right now for traveling in between areas where there's no enemies. It's just going to help keep your barrier and your sentinel active. And yeah, with all that in mind, this is basically min-maxing our skill trees. Now, a reason why you might want less points in playing dirty, let's say your loadout is a Dictator, a Brainstormer, a Maggie, and a Redistributor. The only weapon that you're carrying that really benefits like really well from playing dirty is the Redistributor itself. None of those other weapons, they do benefit from playing dirty because it is just more damage at the end of the day, but they're not benefiting like the Redistributor. The Redistributor does nearly double damage with playing dirty activated, so you want a couple points in there because it's just so powerful. Meanwhile, for example, like I said, if you have the Dictator active, you're going to benefit like insanely from Violent Violence. I've used the Dictator with Violent Violence to the point where it makes my game lag while I'm shooting it sometimes. The Dictator is like insanely powerful with a lot more points into fire rate. It's just going to help you melt enemies a lot faster. This is like a straight DPS upgrade because you're doing your damage a lot faster. It's a really good skill. So at the end of the day, in my opinion, if you don't want to use Banjo, I don't think you have to. I think the Snowdrift Victory Rush is a great option. An Icebreaker Victory Rush is a good option, especially with the Sentinel Cryo buff recently. Now that Sentinel Cryo is actually at 100% instead of 50%, I do notice me freezing enemies a lot faster and more consistently with a bunch of different weapons, even just with the Redistributor. At 50% Sentinel Cryo, I don't think I was freezing enemies quickly enough to justify an icebreaker alone. I would have much rather just wear a snowdrift personally, but I think it's like actually a pretty good option now considering the recent buff. So basically I just wanted to make this video to show you guys the banjo, tell you guys the pros and cons, and tell you guys that you definitely don't necessarily have to wear this artifact at all. It will always be a favorite for me because the moment the Seeing Dead class mod came out and I paired it with my redistributor was such a good moment. You know, one of my favorite videos I've ever made was Banjo God King, but at the end of the day, if it's not always the best option, I will tell you guys that. And I wanted to give you guys an alternate skill tree if you did decide to wear the banjo. I think Violent Violence is an underrated skill. I used to not like that skill at all, but I'm a changed man after using it. It's actually a really great skill. And I think I was convinced after the Infinity Man Zane build, when I put a ton, like 10 points total into Violent Violence with our class mod, and I actually got some real damage out of the Infinity Pistol, I was convinced that this is a really good skill to use. So yeah, just wanted to share that with you guys today. So if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe if you want to see more. But otherwise, I just want to give another quick shout out to my channel members. I appreciate all of you for the support, but that's going to be it for the video. If you disagree with any of my testing or if you think I missed something, please comment down below because I'd like to hear it. I would definitely like to know if and when I mess up. When that happens, I am like fully willing to admit my mistakes and correcting them. So yeah, just wanted to make this video for you guys, but I'll see you in the next one. I'm out.